Well, this was not a planned podcast by any means. This is really a huge impact that I was seeing very recently on the NIH and gotten a lot of confirmations. I'm really happy, Lisa, that you and Matt could come on. If you want to just really quickly introduce yourself, again, this is about the NIH freeze and the impact currently that's going on. And this is January 27th, I believe. Forgive me if it's 28th. I mean, we're all, this is right fresh from what's going on, people that have directly impact. If you want to introduce both of yourself, please, before we get talking about this. Thank you so much.
Sure. And yeah, the last, 24 hours seem like the same day. So I don't know what day we're on either. I'm Lisa Marceau, and I run a company that I founded called Alpha Millennial Health. And we do support for non-dilutive funding, which is a lot of SBIR and STTR funding within the federal government, supporting the business journey, business strategy, and founders to get their footing as they start up the entrepreneurial journey. And I also founded a company called Joyous, which is funded by non-dilutive capital right now, SBIR funding, which has been shut off. And we are filling the self-care gap for postpartum, trying to address the massive challenge of maternal illness and death in the postpartum period. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here, Matt.
Yeah, my name's Matt Golden, co-founder, CEO of MapHabit. MapHabit's a behavioral health platform that really empowers caregivers and people with disabilities, autism, Down syndrome, Alzheimer's disease, and related dementia to build habits and routines. We are a small business who has been awarded NIH funds and actively rely on those funds in order to maintain our operations, in order to improve overall population health, and carry out the initiatives and mandates to improve the quality of life for people with dementia and their caregivers.
I really, again, thank you both for coming here. Could we help people people hear of NIH, they probably think of many other things. I mean, it's so massive and huge. Would one of you want to just start just to give the audience who might not know about all the amount of that funding, maybe the annual spend and all the different universities, research, grantees, or just sort of a backdrop on that before we get going, I think would be helpful.
Do you want to take that one, Matt? Or do you want me to?
I can chime in after, but I think you might have a good primer for it.
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head with timing, but I will say that the NIH has, I think, 24. It has 24 institutes, I believe. I might have that number wrong, but the institutes cover. I think what's important about it is that the National Institutes of Health research diseases from bench to bedside across every aspect of care, from bench science. We've heard about vaccines, but it's just way more than that. Infectious disease. It ranges to chronic diseases, diabetes, cardiac disease, understudied diseases like inflammatory diseases and immune function. All of the topics, Matt, that you had mentioned around dementia and mental health care. It ranges across the entire spectrum of diseases and conditions. It's known as, the NIH is the largest funder of research in the United States. It touches just about every university in the country. And so if you think about what that impact is, this isn't just about a particular topic. It's about all of the research that drives health in our country to find better solutions. Clinical research is a gold standard. It's really intended to bring the best unbiased research to the fore so that we're creating outcomes and we're generating interventions and treatments that have been tested. So this isn't a small thing, and it's a multi-billion-dollar problem that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, and just to add on to that awesome description of it, MapHabit has received funds specifically for the National Institute on Aging. And within the National Institute on Aging, it does span both university researchers and also small businesses like MapHabit through the Small Business Innovative Research Program. We have been very fortunate to have several grants that have been funded, and we really work every day towards improving the quality of life and independence for family caregivers who are typically thrown into these diseases without any healthcare training, who are extremely overburdened, caring for their loved one with dementia, but also really needing to take care of themselves. And there aren't a lot of scalable interventions out there. They aren't being generated by the federal government themselves. Private industry, or should I say publicly traded companies, are not investing the time and effort for impartial solutions that really are focused on just general overall well-being for these populations that are typically underserved and just don't have enough tools. So that's why these research programs are so essential, is to empower and really support organizations that are building these solutions that are filling this unmet need. We're fortunate to have some of those funds, and we mentor others as well. But what happened today, without any warning whatsoever, to basically tell us your operations need to stop right now for some other agenda that really isn't it isn't in the best interest of where our country needs to go.
And I think, Matt, you make a really good point, because I think what people may not understand about federal funding dollars in the healthcare system is that, we spend a lot of time in the news listening to kind of these high profile topics. But, in terms of cardiovascular disease treatment outcomes, the work that I've done over my career, the people that I worked with, were doing the guideline changing research to make sure that we're getting the best treatment for cardiovascular disease. The fact that we understand how to treat diabetes, these came out of the NIDDK, the institute within the NIH. The fact that we now have a moonshot for Alzheimer's, this came out of research that was done through NIH and collaborating institutions funded by the NIH. So we're talking about something that, pediatric research, babies that now live full, healthy lives because of the research done within NHLBI and other institutes. So we got to remember that this is not just funding for topics that seem to be sensational in the news today. These are about every aspect of life that has changed how we treat disease, so that people, our children, our families, our mothers, our fathers, our loved ones live longer, better, healthier lives.
And this is unprecedented. I mean, I know there's transitions from administration to administration, but there's never been a freezing of, these are grants that are already done. Both you and Matt are small business owners. That's like, I can only imagine the impact financially, waiting for that 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, you get your paycheck, or however it's dispersed. And there's been no communication. Is that correct? That it just happened just like that, right?
Yeah, I received it. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, it just happened. We basically draw down funds based on a notice of award that's given per fiscal year that the federal government has. We work very hard to fulfill the aims in which we submitted our applications, that get reviewed by a very broad, impartial scientific review committee that then gets recommended by the institute in which you apply for, and then Congress itself approves that funding. So this is not just like, it sounds like a good idea, let's give them money. There's a very rigorous process that incorporates thousands of hours of work across the person that's applying, or the company that's applying, and everyone that's involved. So, we basically rely on these funds as we work towards creating evidence that our interventions are in true valid, and they do generate positive impacts for caregivers, for people who suffer these behavioral health needs, like those with dementia, autism, Down syndrome, et cetera. But it's hard to even fathom that without any warning, basically that has to stop. And that, for us to be able to make payroll, over the next month, because we have to spend our funds and then submit it for reimbursement. That system, that payment management system where we submit these expense draws, was completely shut out for us today. We don't know when it's coming back online. We hear some dates that are in some articles about, middle of February, programs will be evaluated. That's too long. That's too much time. This interrupts progress, not only within our company, but we know that other agencies are significantly impacted outside of universities. Meals on Wheels that provide meals to older adults who are living in their home, they've been cut off in funding. So now, our parents, and this isn't just like a Democrat or Republican issue. This is everyone. They're not going to get the meals that they depend on to live. And they haven't went grocery shopping because now, these funds aren't going to be available. And, it spans a lot of different areas. Some of Social Security and Medicare was specifically said it was not affected, but Medicaid was not included in that conversation. So there are a lot of state governments and managed care organizations that really don't know how to support the 80 million people that are on Medicaid. So it's a far-reaching issue that really came out of nowhere, and we really don't know how to move forward.
And I think that, I think, Matt, you outlined something that's really important. I think there's this idea that once someone gets a $2 million grant or a $500,000 grant, it's suddenly just a bucket of money. And there is no, and I do this work for clients. I've been working in this industry for 30 years with federal funding. It is the most fiduciary responsibility that you can have. There are a lot of rules and regulations that require you to spend that money within allowable rules. And to Matt's point, it's not like you are able to even draw all those funds initially. So you are really living in a, did I need to spend this? Do I need to spend this cycle? And so we should be grateful and supportive of a system that ensures that the businesses that are receiving these funds have to be required to follow the spending in a certain way. But when you shut that spigot off, that also means that they don't have 2 weeks of payroll. And I think what's really important to understand about that, and again, it really isn't, this really doesn't fall along a political line, right? Because if I stop getting funding, I can't pay my payroll, nor can I pay my vendors. I have to tell my vendors that I can't continue to work on that scope of work right now, so please pause. They then can't pay their staff. Now those staff can't go do things like buy whatever they might buy or hire another vendor. So the trickle of this is really quite significant. And when you think about what that is, we've now been removed from the economy as far as like a purchasing power, right? And one of the things I talk about in women's health is women make 80% of the purchasing decisions in families. So you've just taken people out of those purchasing decisions because I have to make choices now. So the economic impact of this is yet to be seen, and maybe it's short term, maybe it's long term, but I think one of the core questions, and like I said, I've had this conversation a number of times in the past 24 hours, is, we are enraged or frustrated or angry or confused or irritated. We can pick an adjective that works. But my question is, the veil, we've had a peek behind the veil. The fact that we thought something that could never be done has been done. We don't know if it's within the laws of the government or not. It seems like it shouldn't be, but again, this was done, so somebody thought that it could. So the question for us now, and this is the question I've been talking about for the last, like I said, day, certainly since last night, is what do we do to move forward, right? And one of the things I love, and I'll talk from the perspective of women's health, because that's where I spend a lot of my energy and effort, is we are not unaccustomed to adversity, right? We have had that as an obstacle in many, many ways over many generations. So we would like a moment of peace. We would like a break from adversity. We would like to take a breath and not have to be like, where is the next shoe going to drop? But when it does, like it did last night at 10:42 or whatever it was, we now have to look forward and say, what do we do about it? And that's where I think we need to spend our energy, because we're not going to have the answers about when it's coming back, how soon, and for whom, because the for whom question is really, I think, where we have to think about, it might come back. It might come back for states that are, most supportive, or least most neutral, or whatever the reasoning and rationale for bringing the funding back is. But we also have to recognize some of the funding may not come back. So how do we move forward? What do we do to make sure that we are driving change the way we can, because we know how to deal with adversity. We know how to move forward. And that's where we need to focus all of that energy and all of that angst and all of that anger. What do we do next? That's the question that that I keep talking about, and I think we need to keep talking about.
So I guess contractually, I guess, I'm wondering, imagine at this point, are you behind, talking to attorneys? What is, what's out there with the awardees, NIH grant awardees? What are you kind of hearing or talking amongst each other, due process, or, would this be going to the Supreme Court? I mean, how is this, what do you, I know you don't know the answers, but what are you hearing, or when are you out there on these conversations about this?
Yeah, I'll chime in first. I've been in touch, like Lisa has, with colleagues, with mentors, with mentees all day. When we try to log into the system that we use for drawing down active congressionally approved grants, we get this HTTP 403 bad host address. What? I mean, you can't just unplug the internet to federal systems. And we're like, is this just me? Maybe it's just my account. So I text message another principal investigator who I know has an active award. And he said, yeah, that same sort of thing happened to me. I'm on the phone with their help desk, and the agents at the help desk don't even know what's happening. So I think Lisa was absolutely right. This has been planned for many, many months, but it's planned at such a high level and without an eye on implementation, and really meant for shock value as opposed to really, moving the needle towards reducing the deficit, that it's really just, it's just unfathomable. I basically spent the whole day talking with our staff and doing contingency planning for things that honestly are not in the best interests of the people that we serve, and really, helping people who have, these kind of really tough conditions, helping them, live the best life they can, because they've really been forgotten about by society. It's just really tough. So to your point, in terms of Supreme Court or different lawsuits, I'm not an expert on that. I don't know if Lisa is as well, but I have read some articles about some nonprofits actually suing the federal government for this, and asking for like kind of a temporary stoppage of it, whatever the legal term is for that. We don't have the resources as a 20-person team to sue the federal government. We're just hopeful that people will come to their senses that, sure, new funding that has to go out, maybe that makes sense to kind of review what are the initiatives that make sense with this administration and for what society has. But for already approved programs that are in flight, to just shut them off without any warning, that's just not right.
Yeah, with no communication too. I mean, it just seems like, and you can't even find out. That to me is, just, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, you got to be kidding me. I mean, it just doesn't even seem like this is possible. But anyway,
you wake up in the morning and the bank has shut off your checking account, right? It's like you earned that money, you put it in there, and now you don't have access to it. And I think that's, it's a disabling fear that everyone has, right? You just don't want to wake up one morning and not be able to figure out how to pay your bills, feed your family. That's, a lot of people in that position right now. And I think, as far as the Supreme Court, there's obviously in the news, you see a lot of news about, legal action. And I think that will always be kind of the next step. I'm not an expert in that way, sense in any way. But I think that Matt's point is correct. I mean, many small businesses, larger institutions will have the likely ability to support people for short periods of time. I mean, we've been through recessions, we've been through, government shutdowns. We know, and I've worked in larger settings where you weather those. And that's not unusual, but when you do this and it impacts small businesses, and all the small businesses who support those universities and larger institutions, hospital systems, there's an impact, because you can't do anything about it. But when we talk about like what this means in real terms, the fact that it happened and the fact that we even have to talk about what you do next means it can happen, and it can happen again. And I think one of the key things I wanted to make sure we convey is that money may come back, right? But the kind of the Pandora's, or the genie's out of the bottle, I guess is the way to say it. It's like, if this can be done, it can be done again. So when I look forward and when I talk to my colleagues and when I talk to my friends, I say, what do we do now? We diversify. We look to other funding sources. We figure out, how do we take the best of our budgets to do the things that we know we need to do to test all of those elements of our products, so that we can have products get to market to change outcomes for healthcare. And I think it's also a challenge and a call to funders who are not federal funders, right? The dilutive funding, the industry that funds through industry foundations or through investment. We know that the path to investment is hard. It has always been hard. But my challenge to the investors out there who care about these issues is not look at this like a fire sale of small businesses who now can't pay their bills. How are you going to think about your processes being more efficient? How are you going to think about maybe your due diligence has to be a little bit different to help support and bring some of these companies to stable ground, so that they can continue to develop and continue to innovate and continue to grow these incredible solutions that are going to bring ovarian cancer from stage 3 to stage 1 or pre, right? How are we going to change the gaps in care for Alzheimer's disease, where we're starting to see some real progress, right? That research has been hit. How are we going to look differently as we move forward with our investors, with industry funders? There's a lot of money in the system. And so we have to think differently, we have to act differently, and we have to collaborate. And I will come back to this point every single time. We have to collaborate. We have to move forward together, and we have to figure out how we can support each other, raise each other up, and bring each other together with our strengths, because that is how we're going to continue to make change. That's how we're going to bring these funds and this money that's already out there together, despite and irrespective of what happens with this federal funding.
So is there anything you would like to add about just this is, just, I guess it was 10/25 when it happened. You basically looked at whatever you log into, and you're in like a 401, I don't even know what the 404 thing, internet not working, and so here it is today.
From our perspective, we have spent most of the day, like I mentioned, contingency planning, and what if scenarios. What if it comes back next week? What if it comes back tomorrow? What if it doesn't come back? How do we make ends meet? How do we lean up our team so that we can still fulfill the mission of the company, still work towards fulfilling the mandate that we've signed up for to receive these federal funds, but still be prudent about kind of keeping the company going. So it's just really a bit of a shock right now, and to Lisa's point, we relied on this as kind of guaranteed money, just like an FDIC bank account that's backed, and that was our most consistent, secure, source of funds to really build these innovations that really should hopefully support, reducing the overall costs and budget for many years to come if we are successful. And like Lisa mentioned, both on the women's health side and on behavioral health with Alzheimer's and other neurodiverse conditions, both within our respective companies, but other innovations are finally now really starting to prove those outcomes and gain traction to move the needle. So it's just a wake-up call that we do have to, call to our investors, call to, members of Congress to really advocate for the small businesses, for these researchers, but really, not take anything for granted going forward. I thought that this was the most secure thing that we had going for us, because commercial contracts can come and go, investors can choose to, support you, and then something happens, and that doesn't happen. But that shouldn't have been the case for these kind of awards that were backed by Congress. But we're in a new world.
Well, I again, thank you so much for both coming on, Lisa and Matt, and just really sharing the perspective from, awardees of the NIH grant and small business owners really doing innovation, all of why these programs exist, and kind of giving some, personal experience. I think more of this needs to happen. This is real. It's not just news articles. It's not just stuff on whatever. You guys are real people with, sadly, you're got employees and company, team members, and, so just for that to happen, just like that, I wish this was not, how this is. It's just that this has happened is just, I can't believe it. And, that there was no communication or anything or explanation, or, I'm hoping that we will hear something, any more positive indicator of what's going on by some, NIH itself. I don't know is there any indication that you might hear anything from them as the organization?
I think that, as we would expect from what we've seen in the news, there's going to be limited communication. And I understand and respect the decisions that they have to make in that front. And I think the kind of last point I'd really like to make, because what you said is like, this happened suddenly. There is no communication. There's been no, throwing people into this form of chaos puts us in a place of fear. And I think that the thing that is really relevant in this moment of fear is that fear, change, and innovation are all very connected, right? So we can live in a place of fear, or we can see fear as a place of discomfort, and discomfort is a result of change. So how do we make change based on that fear? And change is the catalyst for innovation. So how do we change? How do we turn fear into innovation? And I think that's where we really need to focus our energy and attention.
Well, I love that. Fear changing, transforming fear into innovation. I love it. Matt, anything you want to say as we wrap up?
I mean, that was so eloquently spoken, Lisa. Yeah, I mean, when your back's against the wall, sometimes your truest colors come out. And I've always said that kind of when I'm pushed outside my comfort zone, I grow and develop from that. And I really, truly believe we will come out stronger at the end of this. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done between now and when we have that resolution. So it's just going to be a really tough several days, weeks, and months ahead. But I really hope that we can come out stronger out of this experience.
I do. I do too. And I really, again, thank you, Lisa and Matt, for coming on today and just sharing this real timely, unfortunate experience with NIH loss of funding.
Thank you for the time and for making this a priority.
You bet.